in Lloyd Vance, 5:15 on a Tuesday. Vance's View. Always kind enough to join us for a couple moments as we go around the league with him. How are you?
Doing good, Q, man. We had some good games, some walk-offs, and some other exciting plays out there.
We had very good games. But can we ban, and listen, you know you are dear to my heart, but can we have announcers ban the word walk-off in football? Come on.
Yeah, game-winning.
There you go.
In overtime.
Thank you very much. So, Pelissero just tweeted out, as expected, the NFL informed clubs the 2022 salary cap is projected, you ready for this, to be $208.2 million per multiple sources. Wow.
And I think that's up from $186 million this year. So teams are going to have a lot of money. And I heard you talking earlier about the quarterback situation with the Giants. You're going to see some of these veteran guys move around with all that cap space out there.
I think so. And you were dead on, right? Salary cap this season, 182.5. So that's why we bring you on. You know your stuff. All right, let's talk about some of these games. When you look at that game last night, because it's kind of freshest in our minds, how do you explain Arizona being such a good team as a whole, a really good team on the road, but having so many problems at home? It makes absolutely no sense because, look, you won home field advantage. You'll get a bye. You win a divisional game. Then you host an NFC championship. But how do you explain that they're 10-3, but yet 3-3 at home?
Yeah, that's crazy because, they seem to get up for these games on the road. And at home, I think they get kind of complacent. They get leads, and they kind of sit on them, and then they allow other teams to jump back in these games. But when I looked at last night, they came down to a couple plays here and there where they went for it on fourth down and didn't complete it. And the Rams, you have to tip your cap to them. Just defensively, they were getting after Kyler Murray and making a lot of plays, particularly Aaron Donald. So, it was a good divisional win, a game that the Rams had to have.
Yeah.
And maybe the Cardinals kind of took them kind of lightly because they beat them earlier in the season.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I mean, I actually backed away. I didn't touch this game. Dallas winning by 7 over Washington. Washington has a ton of injuries. Thomas goes down. They got players in COVID-19. I mean, you talk about the Eagles being able to kind of pick them off at the right time, laying 4.5. Do you give Washington a puncher's chance on Sunday against Philly?
I definitely do because, these divisional games, they're always very tight. And Jalen Hurts is coming back from an injury. What's he going to bring to the table? And then the Eagles, they run the ball with effectiveness, and Washington has had, they've been able to stop it here and there. So I don't think Heineke's going to play as bad as he did last week, 11 to 25, 122 yards, only one touchdown, one interception. And the key thing is, are the Eagles going to be able to get the heat on him that Dallas did over and over again with Randy Gregory and the rest of those guys getting home?
Yeah, I think if you're the Eagles, you just got to run the football, time of possession, shoring up the field. Just get out of there with a win because right now it looks like that giant loss is going to stick in their craw, so to speak. And you've got Dallas now to kind of give you somewhat of the body shot. Now, if you're the Eagles, you can knock out Washington, right? And then all of a sudden you got to worry about teams like maybe Minnesota, Atlanta, San Francisco, as we come down to the stretch run. So this is if you don't beat them with all their injuries and all these COVID-19 issues, you don't deserve to make the playoffs.
I agree with you. And this is a huge opportunity for the Eagles. 6-7, they need to get to 7-7. And the surprising thing is you rattle off some of those teams that are also 6-7 fighting for that last playoff spot. New Orleans as well as Atlanta. The Eagles have beat them. So, they're in their rearview mirror, and this is the Eagles' opportunity. But as we said earlier, they stubbed their toe against the Giants when they needed to take a step forward. So, big game for them, and we'll see if they're up for the challenge.
I don't know. Does everyone remember when Kansas City was 3-4? It seems like that was years ago. Now I know Jones is on the COVID list. Snead's going to return, but how about what they've done offensively over the last month plus? Right. 41 against the Raiders. Then they put up 48, their second meeting against the Raiders. They got a road trek against the Chargers. They close with the Steelers, Cincy, and Denver. They're going to win their 13 games. I mean, what's been their biggest – what do you contribute their turnaround to?
Yeah, Q, a couple things. And offensively, they've had a nice surge, as you were talking about there. But, Mahomes has been more efficient than having those big plays that we're used to down the field, and Travis Kelce not producing at a huge level as he did in the past. But the big thing is defensively, to me, Steve Spagnuolo has a great group there. This game turned right away against the Raiders. Mike Hughes, who had 9 tackles in the game, he picked up a fumble, returned it for a touchdown, and the game was virtually over from there. So they were up 35-3 in the first half and just cruised home from there. So it's definitely the defense to me. Chris Jones done a great job pushing the pocket and allowing everybody else to get after the quarterback. It's going to be fun to see this game, though, Thursday night. Can they step up for the Chargers because it's a huge divisional game with playoff implications?
Yeah, I'm actually looking right now at this game. The Chargers absolutely just wax the Giants, who once again put up zero resistance. But if you look at the numbers in this game right now, the total is 52. Kansas City is actually laying 3 on the road, which is enticing. But the Chargers, look, they're 8-5. They're right in the thick of things. That quarterback is really playing at such a high level. They had that tough loss against the Vikings. They should have beat the Vikings. They certainly should have beat the Broncos, but they were just kind of slow out of the gate. And then they've come back and they put up a ton of points. I love the over in this game, but I also like the Chargers. I think if the Chargers find a way to get into the playoffs, man, you get that hot hand. That X factor is that quarterback.
Yes, Q. They're a dangerous team, but they're also very inconsistent. So this is their chance to show everybody that they're a true contender, and it's going to take a lot to slow Mahomes and the way they're playing right now. They're on 6 straight wins. It's a big opportunity for the Chargers, but they can't have that letdown because we've seen Herbert kind of turn the football over and the team nondescript now. Austin Eckler has an injury. We'll see if he's able to play in this game. He's going to be a huge key to this game. And then could Joey Bosa get home defensively for the Chargers and have Derwin James and the guys in the back end make some turnovers? So it's a big game. Looking forward to Thursday night. I'm probably leaning, though, towards Kansas City. I just think Andy Reid has his team rolling, especially after they had that late bye.
I was a little disappointed of how Tampa Bay kind of closed the show against Buffalo. Granted, the game went in overtime. Brady with the touchdown toss in the extra stanza. But still, defensively, the prop bet going into that game was Josh Allen, I believe, over 33 or so rushing yards. My buddy was telling me about it, or maybe it was 40-something. He went well over 100. Everyone jumped on that. But still, defensively, I didn't like what Tampa was doing late in that game. They just allowed Buffalo to go right down the field. So I'm sure that's something that needs to be cleaned up. But, look, Tampa was one of those teams, right? We talked about them earlier in the season. This is a team that is going to figure out a way to just, hit on all cylinders late, and that's exactly what they're doing, and they're really tough out at home. They haven't lost. They're 6-0 at home.
Yes, and Tom Brady has his team clicking on all cylinders, and they won 4 straight games, and, they're putting the pedal in the metal. They're defending Super Bowl champions for a reason. It'll be interesting to see if Bruce Arians allows AB to come back to this team because they're on such a roll. This week they're going to have New Orleans, a team who they lost to, so they're going to get revenge on them. And, I think the Bucs, though, are definitely turning the corner. And then you talk about the Bills. They're kind of going in the opposite direction. They're leaning too much on Josh Allen. You talk about that rushing statistic. He's led this team in rushing, and we talked about this with Jalen Hurts. You don't want your quarterback to be your leading rusher.
No.
Because this is just a sure sign that he's trying to do too much, and he may get injured out there. He takes a lot of hits, so he's a big, tough, strong kid, but you definitely like to see some of those running backs step forward. But Tampa Bay, they saved their bacon there because they almost let Buffalo come in and sneak in and win that game. But Rashad Perriman gets a 57-yard touchdown.
Rams win over the Cardinals. The Bucs have moved into second place in the NFC seeding. Packers moved into first. The Cardinals dropped to third. All 3 squads have 10-3 records. I feel as though Green Bay is almost like an afterthought. We're talking about Kyler Murray and Arizona, Stafford and the Rams and Kupp and Beckham and that defense. And then Tampa, as you mentioned, defending Super Bowl champs. And, oh, by the way, the Green Bay Packers put up 45 the other day against a brutal, bad Bears team. And aside from really stubbing your toe against the Chiefs and the Rams and I guess you give them a pass that first game of the season, right? They have been steady Eddie, man. I mean, do you think the Packers are built to make a deep run into the playoffs?
I do, Q, and you're right. They're clicking on all cylinders at the right time, and they beat Arizona earlier, so they have a lot of the tiebreakers. And right now, the road looks like it's going to go through Lambeau. They got Aaron Jones back. He looked like he has a good burst, and then you have Dillon running between the tackles, and Rodgers is making big throws to Lazard, and then Adams is always going to eat out there, and their defense is coming along with some unknown guys. But Russell's doing a good job rushing the passer for them. So, they're a very dangerous team. They're at Baltimore. They have Cleveland and Minnesota, and then they finish at Detroit. So their team right now, you could say they're probably in the driver's seat, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can get that first-round bye.
Would you even consider – I think you have too much at stake. Would you consider resting Rodgers? Maybe that Lions game, you see how it plays out if you already have the top seed locked up?
Well, we saw Jordan Love play out there, and he just did not play well when they gave him the opportunity. If they do play Detroit and Detroit, Dan Campbell, he's going to get his team up for that game, but definitely that is a spot. If they look like they can sneak Rodgers and get him out by halftime, that definitely may be the play for LaFleur there. But, Rodgers, he's going to want to go out there and put up some stats and then kind of sit back and enjoy himself.
And we've talked about this for years. I always get a little weary when you're resting guys, right? I mean, we saw what happened years ago with Indianapolis and Tony Dungy. And Coughlin decided not to rest guys back in 2007 against the Patriots, and that gave him the confidence going forward. So I guess it is kind of I don't want to say it's subjective, but everyone has their own opinion on it. I want to get to a couple quarterbacks. Let me ask you this. We're seeing what's going on with the Raiders right now. They can't score a ton of points. I don't know if they feel Carr is a franchise quarterback. So with that being said, say you're a team like the Giants and you think maybe you can get in the running for Russell Wilson. If you can go after a bridge quarterback in Carr for a couple of years, do you think that'll be an option? And first, do you believe that Carr will be with the Raiders going forward?
Well, right now it's looking like the Raiders are not going to make the playoffs after that hot start. And the interim head coach, I don't expect him to be in the race to be the final decision there. They're probably going to blow everything up. Mike Mayock will probably go out the door as well, and he's their general manager. So, Carr is definitely on the table because they've given him a chance year after year, and I just don't see him staying there. And maybe they blow the whole thing up and go with a younger quarterback. I know this year's draft class is not the best, but maybe a lot of these veterans, we talked about the cap space that's going to be out there. You may see some veteran movement. And Russell Wilson, we talked about earlier, him and Pete Carroll, that situation is coming to a head, and Carroll seems to be in charge of that whole situation up there.
What about Baker Mayfield in Cleveland? I mean, I'm not suggesting the Giants go after him. I'm just asking you Baker Mayfield in Cleveland because you look at Odell Beckham over his last couple of games with the Rams and his receptions and touchdowns, and then you look at what he was doing with Cleveland and Mayfield, and maybe there's something to be said about that. Is Mayfield the answer going forward in Cleveland?
Well, that's a tough one, Q, because they got to figure out about a fifth-year option. Do they give him that big contract? But to me, he's not a $40 million season quarterback at this point. I do see them, though, that they could be that team. Right now they're 7-6, sliding into the playoffs and kind of making, putting some window dressing on everything. But Mayfield seems to be their guy. I think he's going to stay with Cleveland, and, I just don't see him leaving right now because he's just endeared himself to the fans out there, and he seems to be their guy. They're going to lean on their running backs and their defense first and foremost, but he's not a frontline guy. If I'm the GM, who's Andrew Barry, I wouldn't pay him $40 million a season.
Yeah, I think everyone's looking at the numbers he posted last year, right? 26-8. Prior to that, 22-21, 27-14, not as bad as a rookie. Has not played particularly well this year. Has dealt with some injuries also. All right, I know we don't like to talk about this because you never want to talk about guys getting fired, but I can see, I've calculated potentially 6 head coaches that my opinion is they're out. And you might be shocked by this. I'll just give you them. I think McDermott's going to be out in Buffalo.
Oh.
Yep,
Okay.
I think it's going to be because I think the expectations were all there this year, and he's not getting the best out of Allen. And I know they had some injuries here and there, but I definitely think he might be that, oh, my God, are you kidding me? They got rid of him. So I'm going to give you that one. I think Myers out in Jacksonville. I think you just have to make a change. That's 2 right there. I agree with you. The Raiders will need another head coach. That's 3. I think Denver's going to need a new head coach. That's 4. I definitely think Judge is going to be out. That's 5. I already told you I think Matt Rule is your also surprise kind of, is 6. And then here's another one for you. Do you think Pete Carroll retires or walks away?
All right. Well, let's take these in order. I think Pete Carroll, he's got so much ego, and he's teamed up with John Schneider for so many years with Seattle. Their ownership situation is very fluid right now with Paul Allen passing away and his sister running the team. So I think Pete Carroll will somehow survive this. It may be Russell Wilson leaving in the off season. So I think he stays. In terms of coaches, definitely on the hot seat. You got Matt Nagy with Chicago. I think he's out.
Oh, yep. I'm sorry. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
They've already started talking in Houston about David Culley, that he's possibly not coming back. I mean, you feel bad for the guy, but the team's 2-11, and you wonder about him as well. Urban Meyer is very interesting because I was just looking up on this. He signed a 6-year, $60 million contract, so that would be 5 years for Shad Khan to kind of eat on that one, and does he do it? But that team is in such disarray, fighting within the staff, players fighting with coaches, and it just looks very bad. So definitely that is on the table as well. The Giants, when you look at them, Joe Judge, I just somehow think he's going to survive this thing. DeAndre Jones has a neck injury. They're probably going to shut him down to bring him back. And why not give Joe Judge one more season to prove himself without Dave Gettleman, the general manager there? So that's going to be interesting. Now, Sean McDermott in Buffalo, everybody I've talked to, Brandon Beane is the general manager there. He brought him over from Carolina with him. So that's going to be very interesting to see if the Pajulas want to bring back Sean. But I think Buffalo's kind of sneak into the playoffs and go from there. They definitely have been underachieving. They have Carolina. They're at New England, which is a huge game, Atlanta, and then the Jets. So their record's going to be nice, but, sometimes it is more than record. As you said, is the team going to make that next step? But that would be a huge change for them. So there's going to be a lot of changes coming up at the end of the season, and just kind of have to sit back and see who's going to go where. But hopefully you'll see a guy like Eric Bieniemy get his opportunity, a guy like Byron Leftwich who's down in Tampa as well.
Yeah, look, I think Buffalo had the highest expectations going into the season, especially in the AFC. Everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion they were going to run away with the division. They're not going to do that. New England's going to win their division. They started off 4-1, and what are they now? 7-6, so 3-3 in their last 6 games. God forbid they lose to, say, the Jets to close out the year and they don't get in. And you look at Allen, all the money that you're paying Allen, and listen, this team's got weapons, and I'm not going to sit here and suggest that Josh Allen is not having a very good year. But I think the anticipation, or I should say the expectation after, that contract, and now he's dealing with that sprained left foot that he suffered against the Bucs, so he's still questionable, so to speak. I think people were looking at his numbers last year and compared to this year. 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks. He's already got 11 picks. He's only thrown 28 touchdowns, 3,500 yards. So you got 3 games less. He is not gonna put together those types of numbers that he had last year. And I also think at the end of the day, ownership, schmonership, it doesn't matter, man. When you have expectations going into a season like that, and you have a slide like this, and you lose some bad games, and I'm telling you, they better not lose to the Jets, and let's just say get eliminated on the last day. Then I think you turn around and you really have to consider. He was on the hot seat, a year or so ago? So I don't know. Yeah. And as far as Judge, I agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with it, though. Everything you're saying is 100% accurate. you're saying that it looks like ownership is going to bring him back because of the injuries. You can't gauge Daniel Jones. But if you fire Dave Gettleman, I don't even know why he's still the GM right now, but if you fire Gettleman, Gettleman's going to – the new GM's going to want to bring in his own guy. And that's why I'm thinking to myself, if you fire Gettleman and you really go down the toilet and finish, say, 4-13, which is very realistic, how do you bring Judge back?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. He should be on hot seat because that team has underachieved. You just see they don't have a lot of spark within them. And you know, it may not just be Gettleman leaving. You know, we talked about Saquon Barkley last week. What are they going to do with him? Are they going to give him an extension?
I can't do that.
A guy that and defensively, you know, there's really not a lot of standouts there. They had a couple guys who are players, but they got hurt for them. So
all of them,
you know, a lot of changes coming with the New York Giants, and you know, they just wonder: are they going to do one sweeping motion, or is it going to be the slow bleed that we've seen? They already got rid of Garrett. Now we'll be Gettleman next, and you know, but why not just turn the page and say, you know what? This wasn't the right regime that we built. We got to start from scratch all over again. So, you know, the Mara family, they try to give loyalty to guys, but sometimes they need to just pull the plug and just move on.
You're paying Galladay $72 million. He's got 28 receptions for 424 yards. He doesn't show up. He's done for the season. Shepard can't stay healthy. Ingram's too inconsistent. Slayton can't catch a ball. I mean, it's just bad. And then you got to decide, well, wait a second. If Jones is not the answer, are you going to try to go with a placeholder? Then if you start to do that, then it's another wasted season. So I don't know, man. It's very hard to gauge a quarterback when he plays behind a very bad offensive line, and it's even more tougher to gauge when he plays behind a bad offensive line and his skill players are always hurt and they're not available.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for the Giants, and you just figured, they'll always be in the mix with the Eagles and Washington and Dallas. But this year, Dallas has kind of run away with that division, and they got to look in the mirror and say, you know what, we're looking up at Dallas, and we got to catch them.
All right, let's go through these games. Before we do that, game ball and Lackey for this past weekend. Yeah,
game ball. I'll go with last night's game. You had to go with the Rams defensive lineman Aaron Donald. He was just dominant in that game. 5 tackles. 3 sacks, including the game ender, and he also drew several holding penalties on the Cardinals. So he was just dominant in that 30-23 road win. My lackey, unfortunately, I got to go with rookie quarterback, Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence, 24-40, 221 yards passing, and he had 4 interceptions, and the team only had 192 total yards. Now, that's another situation. He's regressing. And do you bring back Urban Meyer, who's not going to be able to fix him? He's the number 1 overall pick, and you just feel bad for the kid, but I had to give my lackey this week.
And maybe you think you shouldn't have drafted a running back. You should have actually fixed the offensive line, and then the running back goes down early in the season. It's always Monday morning quarterbacking. All right, we'll start with that Thursday night game, Chiefs and the Chargers. Total's 52. Kansas City's laying 3. I'm going to play the over in that one and just sit back and enjoy it. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of offensive fireworks in this. Yes, Steve Spagnuolo has fixed them in the holes in the Chiefs' defense, but they still give up a lot of yards and points. Herbert has got to protect the football. We'll see if Eckler's playing in this game, which is huge. But I think the Chiefs will find a way to win this. It may be close. There'll probably be a lot of Chiefs fans there. You know that the Chargers' home crowd is not the biggest. So I'll go with the Chiefs in a close one, but I do also like the over.
Interesting 8:15 game on Saturday. You've got the Pats and the Colts. Indianapolis is laying 2.5. The total is 45. Juice to the over 45.5. Listen, Patriots are 6-0 at home. We know the Colts are still somewhat of an enigma. They're fighting for their playoff lives. You know, Wentz 1 week good, 1 week not so good. I do like the Patriots in this spot.
And what's the point spread on this one?
The spread right now is 2.5. So you got the short road dog under 3. Indianapolis is laying 2.5.
Yeah, Well, that's a tight one to kind of go around with. I'll go with New England. I think that they will win this game, but it's going to be a very tight one and maybe a field goal type situation. The key, obviously, is going to be stopping Jonathan Taylor, who leads the NFL with 1,348 yards. So,
wow.
Belichick knows a way to stop the run. So I will go with an efficient Mac Jones in this game, not turning the football over, and the defense making a key play here or there for the Patriots.
Steelers fighting for their playoff lives. They're getting 1.5 at home against the Titans. Still no Henry. Total numbers 41.5. I like the Titans on the road in this one, even without Henry.
Well, this is, we thought the Titans they gotten it right. They're 9-4, but their record really doesn't tell us are. I still think the Steelers have one last stand in, and Mike Tomlin, I think they're going to finish 8-1. He never had a losing season, but this is a tight one for them. They showed against Minnesota they still had a little bit of fight in them, so I think they can win this game and get after Tannehill and make some mistakes. So the key thing, obviously, is all the injuries for Pittsburgh. Is T.J. Watt going to play in this game? Because if he plays, usually they win.
How about the Packers and the Ravens? Nice little 4:25 window on Fox. Ravens are banged up with Jackson. Packers are looking pretty good. Packers are laying 4.5. That's a lot of points against a Ravens squad on the road for Green Bay.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because Lamar Jackson obviously will be the key here. We'll see next couple days in practice if he's able to heal up with that ankle injury. Rodgers is playing at such a high level that we talked about earlier. I think with their running attack with Jones and A.J. Dillon, I think they're going to be able to move the football against the Ravens. The Ravens defense has a lot of injuries, but they just have not been able to stop people. So I think Rodgers continues, and he may be back-to-back MVP.
Ooh, interesting. Here's a line. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Cincinnati on the road against Denver. Denver stinks. Denver has no offense, but Denver is a 1.5-point favorite against Cincy. And again, I guess you can look at Burrow and his thumb and the inconsistencies of Cincinnati. They've dropped 2 straight. I don't know, man. I'm not seeing it. I mean, I know what Denver did against Detroit. They waxed them, but I can't play Cincinnati because they're too sporadic, but I'm just curious your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, Q, I'd probably take those points if I'm the Bengals. You're talking about 2 inconsistent teams. Denver's coming off a win, and they think that they're back in the race. They're both 7-6. It's a playoff eliminator. But the Bengals can move the football, and Joe Burrow is going to be able to throw the football down the field. We'll see if Surtain is able to shut down Jamar Chase. But I think Chase is going to have a big game in this one. They'll probably get back Joe Mixon as well. So I think Cincinnati will win this one, and you'll see Denver kind of fall back to the pack. We know Denver, as you said, they're kind of a fraud, even though their record is a winning one right now.
Yeah, and then who did you pick for Washington against the Eagles before I let you get out of here? Philly's laying 4.5. I think that number will close at 5.
Yeah, I think the Eagles will cover this one. I think they'll win probably by 6 or 7 points in this, and it's a must-win situation for them. Washington's defense is a little banged up. You'll see Hurts probably move the football. The Eagles will probably try to run football and try to get 200 yards rushing. That's always been the key for them this season. And defensively, they got to make Heineke make some mistakes. So it's going to be fun to watch. But these are 2 evenly matched teams, but I think the Eagles have the momentum at home.
Yeah, and they just Washington just added their cornerback Kendall Fuller and their defensive tackle Tim Settle on the reserve COVID-19 list. They also lost a very talented tight end as well. Thomas goes down. So if there's a week to give them that knockout blow, so to speak, it would be this one. All right, my friend, excellent stuff and insight as always. Enjoy the games, put a little money in the pocket, and we will certainly talk next weekend.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Our guy, Lloyd Vance, Vance's View. Nice extended segment, quick timeout.